Encounters with ghosts in rented apartments around us. A very good story told by a girl named Linda. You said when you were a student at university, you lived in a room near the school. I don't understand why the land around the school has so many ghosts. Moving a few rooms, there are still ghosts. At that time, you rented a very luxurious motel. That house was built to be a karaoke bar, then for some reason they let students live in it. You stay for a few months, then things start to happen. That day you woke up early to prepare for part-time work. Around 5:30 it was still very dark outside. You look outside the curtain and see a girl sitting looking inside. You strain your eyes to see. The soul has not yet been determined who it is. What? About 5 or 10 seconds later, goosebumps and goosebumps appeared. Behind the long hair is a grey face, completely without eyes, nose or mouth. But it clearly felt like that object was looking at me. You turned around, turned your back, hugging your little friend stiffly. Don't dare breathe. I really didn't dare breathe at that moment. So scared that I felt cold. A few minutes later you woke up. You hugged it and cried, "Linda, I just saw a ghost." All 10 people in the room sat up. Turn on all the lights. Everyone is confused. You just told the story to them. Then each child began to tell their story. So there were at least 3 people in the room who saw that object. But no one was sure they saw a ghost, so they didn't dare tell. The whole room was in a state of fear. Then the guys from the upper floor came down and gave a scare. The whole room screamed. They asked what was going on. You said your room had a ghost. The guys laughed and said, "What do you think?" The girl with long hair, right, she's in our room all the time. There's 2 of us, not just one. Savage obsession. Later, you moved to another room. And another story begins. Your story is light and emotional, not too scary, so just calm down and listen. Next the story meets the long-haired girl in the room. That day, my whole room went down to the owner's room on the parking lot to tell her to offer glasses to her. She definitely denied it, because you guys are so broken-hearted that you talk nonsense. Yes, then that's all she said. If you don't worship, your family will lose, no one will lose. People stay and people go. And she was there one day and let her pee in her pants. My old school friends used to show up again and again, twice a day, lifting their pants up to their crotch to go to school. The tide rises and falls twice a day. I can't wait to see her all the time. Then you move to a room behind the school. In the morning, every time I hear the school bell ring, I start to wake up and go to school. Savagely lazy. You live with your juniors. It was after 11 p.m. that day, and you were still excitedly standing outside singing. The girl in the room said, "Don't worry about sleeping and standing there singing now. Later, the ghost will take you away." I smiled and thought to myself, yes. Maybe someone will come later, isn't it a joke? After speaking, you go to sleep. The room turned off all the lights. As I was dozing off, I heard footsteps going up the iron stairs. Thank you so much. Suddenly I remembered what my brother-in-law told me. In the past he often slept in cemeteries. If you feel overwhelmed, you should lie on your side. Lying on your side reduces the chance of sleep paralysis. You turn around and lie on your side. A hand placed on your shoulder pulled you horizontally. At that time, I didn't understand where the courage came from, but I dared to curse loudly, "If I don't touch you, then don't touch me." Immediately that hand jumped in and strangled you. At that time, I was scared, choked, and scared. You struggle and kick. I started to realize I was wrong, so I apologized. "Forgive me, I was wrong. I was wrong." Slowly that hand released. You also slowly regain your senses. But why don't you feel scared? Really, why didn't you feel scared at that time? Just close your eyes and don't open them. Mind is empty. Then I fell asleep without even knowing it. A few days later, you have a fever. Lying in the room. At noon, some of them go to school and some go to work. The room is alone. The phone rings. "My lover, it's now your husband calling." He asked, "Have you taken your medicine? Try to eat something and then take your medicine. When I get home in the afternoon, I'll stop by." After listening, you put the phone next to you. Face the wall and close your eyes. Suddenly I felt hair touching my face. Then a voice rang out, "Sister, are you sleeping yet? You come back." Absolutely no one. The house is empty. You wake up hastily. Close the room door. Go to the internet shop and sit down. Forget about being sick. In that room, you can see all two ghosts. It was someone in that neighborhood who died. One is a university student. The second is the man from the house at the end of the alley. The university student is the third story. A few months later, after you got married, your mother kicked you and your husband out into a rented room. She said to rent a faraway place, "Don't stay near here." You feel selfish, so you rent a place to stay. The part is for my husband to open a shop to repair and install household electricity and refrigeration. I kept asking and finally found a small room to rent. Located at the very end of the block of accommodation. Your room feels cool, sometimes even feels cold. There was no sunlight all day. But the problem is having to keep the lights on all day because it's dark. For a while, my best friend came down to stay with the couple. He went to do an internship at a TV station, so he stayed there for a while. This girl is extremely shy. Because when he was a child, he met his uncle and his soul came back exactly 100 days after his death. Besides, when he took the university entrance exam and stayed up late studying, he had the habit of turning on the radio and listening to instrumental music late at night. When the music ended, he began to hear sobbing sounds on the radio, mixed with a crackling sound. If you listen to the radio often you will know. From then on he was terribly afraid of ghosts. When he hears about ghost cats, he gets scared out of his wits. And you are different. The more you meet, the more you grow tired. No fear. Not all but better. Less scary than the first times. In this motel room, you meet someone. A man. Slightly fat, white, slightly curly hair. It's usually at dusk, around 6 o'clock, when you cook and wait for your husband to come home to eat. You will feel that person standing behind you watching you cook. He looks very gentle, not trying to tease anything, just showing you that. One time your husband brought 2 friends home. The room is so small that 3 or 4 cars cannot fit all of it. So at night, leave all the cars outside and then put the chain on. That night, my friend and I slept downstairs, and my husband and 2 friends slept upstairs. You know he's afraid of ghosts, and hearing you talk about the man you often see makes him cry. Every time you scare him, he's about to cry, and you burst out laughing. That night, it was said that the car was chained, but it was still very scary. That area also has many social evils. The door was not closed because the car was still being watched. So you don't sleep well at all. Just as you were about to fall asleep, someone suddenly shook your leg. You clearly heard someone say in your ear, "Wake up. There's a thief." You are startled. Open your eyes. Then I heard a drama sound outside. It's the sound that the car's neck is locked. When someone shakes the car, it makes a sound like that. You call out to your husband, "Hey, there's a thief." Your husband and two friends rushed down from upstairs. Weaving past 3 or 4 cars to the street, I saw 2 shirtless guys running to the end of the street. That night I stayed awake. No one can sleep. My friend didn't dare tell the story of being woken up because he was afraid he would pee in his pants. The next morning, you became curious about that man. If he died here, maybe no one would know about him. You wandered over to the neighboring rooms to inquire. Go to the sister's room next door, she is the one who has been here the longest. I heard that from when she was a girl, until she got married, and now her oldest son is 4 years old, she is still here. You ask her if you know if anyone died here in the past, male, short, fat, white, with curly hair. She widened her eyes were both scared and surprised. She said, "How do you know?" You say, "I saw him." Goosebumps and duck skin are tingling. She said, "Did you see a ghost?" You nodded. "You scared me so much, honey." The person you described was the doctor next to your room. At that time he was just an intern. He had a family, a wife and a child. Unfortunately, he was on his way to work. When he returned home, he died in an accident. His wife and children then returned to their hometown. Why didn't he follow his wife and children and stay here like me? I'm so scared. You said there's nothing to be afraid of. He's gentle. The other day my house was almost stolen, but luckily he woke me up. Sacred is scary. Her eyes widened, her irises wanting to take over her entire pupil. She waved her hand, "Okay, don't tell me anymore. I heard you were very scared. You stumble home. So you know who he is. You also wonder why he doesn't return to his wife and children and why does he stay in that room. No wonder no one can stay in that room for long. From the day you moved here. That room had people moving in and out several times. The next day, passing by a few motel rooms outside. You see every room has cacti hanging. Looks funny. Because he hasn't harmed anyone before, but now he's suddenly so scared. 2 days later, the landlady came down and asked you, "What did you really see?" You say yes. She held her friend's hand and said, "Whatever you see, just pretend you didn't see it. Don't talk nonsense so I can still rent it out." That room moves back and forth so much that it bothers me a lot. You tell me to make offerings to people. Calling the teacher to call people's souls to go to the temple to listen to the sutras and then pass away. But he's actually very gentle. This story reached my close friend's ears. That's when he finished a month and a half of internship. It ran away carrying things on all 3 legs and 4 legs, never to return. He said, "When you come up I'll play. I don't dare stay or visit your house anymore, Hoo hoo. Then sometime later you get pregnant, build a house and move to a new house. There, I don't know if that man has passed away or not. And when you get back to your house, you meet a whole family of ghosts. After a year of marriage, the couple started buying land to build a house. It takes a lot of effort for a young couple to buy land and build a house right in a large industrial park thing. The land the couple bought was on an old pig farm. Wherever you go, people say your land is not very clean. Partly because pig manure has been around for years and smells bad. As for the farm, there will definitely be dead pigs. The earth is heavy and negative. Later when staying for a while, you just figured out a lot of things. This camp after the government did not allow raising pigs. The owner of the new farm demolished it and divided it into lots for sale. In the whole village, there are 9 people in 10 provinces, all young couples come to buy land to build a house. But there was little conversation back and forth. Mostly when I come home from work I close the door. And each family is poor. So never build a gate. Who wants to go in and out freely? But notice that everyone's house has problems. Dead end. The house at the end of the alley belongs to the neighbor's uncle and his wife. He went to work abroad with his son-in-law. At home there are only his wife and 3 children. 2 girls and 1 boy. The son has a mental illness and is not very smart. Go to your friend's house, then go to your husband's cousin's house. This couple struggled forever to have a child. Then, when she finally gave birth to her second child, he had a boyfriend and left his wife and child. The next family, the next, all had late children. Then the husband fell into gambling, separated, divorced, and went to the pork merchant's house. She had 2 children, one of whom died in prison because of HIV. Thinking that I live in a land where every neighbor's house looks gloomy, makes me feel sad. Then that year, the neighbor's uncle's mentally ill son died. He died of leukemia. Because he couldn't speak, no one in the family knew when he was sick. At the final stage, he cried in pain. She took her to the doctor and it was too late. That year you had just given birth to your first child 3 months ago. There was a funeral near their house, so mother and daughter moved to their grandmother's house. And each husband stays at home to look after the house. Your husband is inherently afraid of ghosts. There's a crowd next to the house. That night, he lay in the hammock. I heard a rustling and clattering sound behind me. There were footsteps and moving sounds. He was scared and covered himself with the blanket, not daring to say a word. Listen to everything until all the noise stops. He stayed up until morning. The next morning, when the sun was almost at its peak, your husband was brave enough to open the back door and look outside. All of your belongings left behind were stolen. Your husband slaps his thigh. Cursed, his grandmother, father, thought it was a ghost. Since the funeral, you feel like the feeling when you go home is different. Feeling uneasy, you tell your husband not to turn off all the lights at night. Every day there is a light bulb in the room, but that night for some reason, you wake up and see that the lights in the room are all turned off. You hurriedly got up and turned on the light. Then lie down and sleep again. A while later, while dreaming, you feel heavy. Opening my eyes, I saw a baby lying on me, while your daughter is still lying next to you. Feeling terrible, you picked up the child and threw it away. The more you throw it, the tighter it clings. Like it wanted to stick to me. Panicking about the baby, you look next to you and see a woman with loose hair and a dirty face. She stood looking at you with the baby and smiled. It's been a long time since I've seen ghosts and I'm not scared. Suddenly you're really scared this time. The old woman looked like she was enjoying herself, watching you struggle with the baby. You feel your body getting heavier and heavier. Feeling that some source of energy is overwhelming the energy source in your body. You think to yourself, is it ever going to want to enter me? Come on. If you get possessed once, you will die. Don't let it enter. You used all your strength to push the baby out. Folding your thumb into your palm, you do the mudra to regain your spirit. Think of the 3 flames on your body, try to stay as alert as possible. Just then your daughter cried. When you hear your child crying, you turn around, and that's when the other mother and child disappear. You get up and discover that the lights are all turned off. You angrily called your husband up and asked, "Did you turn off the light?" My husband closed his eyes and said, "Yes, turn it off so he can sleep easily." He roared, "I told you never to turn off all the lights. You don't see anything, you know." Annoying. The next morning you tell your husband. He still doesn't believe it. Say you're tired and have random dreams. Yes. We'll see. The next night, your husband has sleep paralysis. He just kept muttering. The friend lying next to him saw this and shook him to wake him up. "What's going on?" you ask. "Are you having sleep paralysis?" Your husband opened his eyes and looked at you, frightened. He said he saw the baby holding his hand and biting it. "I tried to call you but couldn't. Push it away and it bites harder, it hurts." You laugh. "Oh, there. Tell me how to turn off the light when sleeping." "I can't hear you, so now it tells me the smell." The next day your husband ran to the market to buy the Bhagwa mirror. Buy more miscellaneous things to worship. But after the offering, he forgot to hang the mirror up. The mirror was in my pocket. It wasn't until I saw the man in my house mention it that I remembered, and this is the end of the story. Everyone who heard the story found it interesting. Please give me 1 like and 1 comment. Subscribe. Hope everyone has fun listening to the story. See you in the next videos. Goodbye.